Tomasz suggested this question and has coined a new word in the process, so I wanted to get some feedback from the panel. How do you measure the semanticity of an engine? Why don't you start? Yeah, why don't you start?
Right. So that's my favorite question. People are making all sorts of claims about, I'm semantic. No, I'm semantic. I'm more semantic. Okay, let's have a test. Let's think. We are all scientists. And I have a paper written recently with my colleague Riza Berkan. So what we did was the following. We took a sample of queries which are equivalent in terms of meaning. And of course, equivalent is, different people view different things as equivalent, so we have to be very strict. For example, top 10 songs versus top TEN songs. Now, should these two queries return different results? I mean, for a human being, definitely not. Well, today, all search engines, it very much depends whether you say numerically or whether you say it in a alphanumeric fashion. How many people live in France? What's the population of France? It's very much dependent. So I call it semantic invariance. And we did, incomplete, but interesting experiment. We generated massive number of those equivalent questions from the logs, actually from public logs which are available from AOL, the famous AOL log, you probably know that. And we ran it and we saw stability of results. The less stable under rephrasing, the less semantic, right? If I say Tom Cruise the actor, that's a little bit different part of it. For the human being, Tom Cruise the actor and Tom Cruise is equivalent. I mean, unless you mean some other Tom Cruise, but it's such a dominant meaning. Pablo Picasso, the painter, if you say Pablo Picasso, the painter, a person talking to you would say, what do you think? I am some sort of a dummy? I know who Pablo Picasso is. But the search engine would be, oh, the painter. Oh, sorry, we don't know. Okay, well, maybe Wikipedia. Another one would be pablopicasso.com, So that's a test for me, I would be happy to share it and get comments on this, but it will be a very interesting way to evaluate and see whether we are making progress.
Well, to agree on a standard to test different search engines for semantically, Thomas, it's going to take 2 years for us to agree on a standard.
Well, and my comment...
Was that a tweet?
It's going to take probably 2 years to agree on a standard to test.
Well, I'll send you the paper. You will see whether you agree with me.
Let's start today.
Yeah. and that brings up a question I had for later, but it's perfect. When we were planning for this panel, my very first suggestion was, should we have a head-to-head search? And the consensus was we can't do it because the engines are too different and the results wouldn't produce a true result. So if we can't do it, how can we expect consumers to do it? How can we expect consumers to choose one engine over the other?
Well, actually, I'm sorry. Can I talk again?
Yes. Go ahead.
I'm taking over, I guess. I think it's really a possibility for us to come up with some kind of standard. At the end of the day, it's very easy to see from the user logs, who likes which search engine. We can just put them up and have a free competition among them. I mean, instead of us coming with a criteria and claiming here, yeah, we are better, you're better, have the users decide by just, measuring the traffic in certain set of queries. What do you think, Scott?
Well, of course, we all have ways of measuring relevance. We use DCG, and these are well-established methods. It doesn't necessarily get at some of the finer points that Tomasz was making about sort of equivalence of queries, but we certainly know when we make an improvement to the system and our relevance improves. And these are the metrics that we're constantly striving to improve. I think when you get to the original question of semanticity, the approach that Tomasz mentioned is very much an outcomes-based approach. But you also want to look at, I think, the way that these search engines are trying to process data. There are some that are doing it in sort of a way that is really looking for relations, really trying to understand the text, and others that are taking signals about page rank and occurrence of words on the page and proximity. And you could probably call those all semantic approaches, but they're certainly different and rooted in some different technologies. I think it's interesting to take a look at some of those differences as we think of the semanticity of a search engine.
Andrew, I'd like your input on this as well, and I think it would be actually a little talk about SearchMonkey and bringing that in. I'd like to connect the semanticity and SearchMonkey because it's a bit of a divergence for Yahoo in addition to the regular search engine that you have. So, what are your thoughts?
I guess I'd actually offer yet another perspective on this measurement question. It's incredibly hard to understand what a user will like, why a user likes a certain engine. You make small changes, like if you mask the logo on the search engine, there'll be a completely different perception of the results. If you reorder the results to make them worse, and then fix them and ask the user if they're happy, they'll say no, they're not happy. If you have tiny changes to the latency of the results or some details of formatting that people might get used to over time, it will be very impactful on how people perceive it. So measuring what people like about search is very hard. And when it comes to understanding semantic content in search, I would actually advocate a different direction, which is to say, let's try to identify what task the user is trying to solve, and then we'll try to have the metric be aligned to the use case. So we can start to break the set of queries that we see today into classes, and we can kind of say, well, how do we do when somebody is just trying to get to a website that they already know about? And how do we do when they're trying to book dinner? Or how do we do when they're trying to book a vacation, which is something that's incredibly underserved in pretty much all the search experiences that we have today. So I would advocate that semantic technology should be judged based on its impact on task metrics rather than any underlying notion of what does the representation look like, what does the specific sort of entity resolution look like. We need to be a level above that. So SearchMonkey, for instance, is a program that allows users to enter data into the ecosystem, which can then be picked up by Yahoo or any other search engine. It's based on open standards. In fact, we're very happy to see that other engines are picking up on this trend because we think it's good for users. And the information can be incorporated in any way. So the engine can make changes in how we present results. At Yahoo, the users themselves can make changes in how the results are presented. We have about 200 new developers who sign up to change the way that search is experienced every day, and about 15,000 people in the development community overall starting to look at this technology. So I don't actually know what those 15,000 people will come up with as a better way to use semantic data in search, but it'll be interesting, whatever it is. And now that the data's out there and the tools are out there for them to play with it, I anticipate that there'll be a lot of great stuff. But the details of the representation probably aren't the focal point. The focal point is how does it help users?